Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing a story time for you all. Now, this is a story time I actually did on my channel ages ago, like over a year ago, and it was actually the first video that I put on my channel besides the Dub Smash video. But it is so bad. Like, the sound's all off and I'm talking really quietly and I was barely looking at the camera. I was like over here and I was like anyway, I was so not camera savvy at all because it was my first video, so I thought that I would redo it for you because it's actually a pretty interesting story and I think you guys might like it, especially if you're into like the dental nursing side of this. This is a medical type video, so I think you'll like it, and I'll also put in some pictures as well because I have some there. So this is the story about how I dislocated my elbow. Now, a dislocation doesn't sound that bad, but dislocating your elbow is like months of physiotherapy and there's a chance it's never actually going to be fully straight again, and it took so long to actually get to a point where it felt normal. Even now I'm scared to do things with it because I'm scared it's going to pop out. So that's this story, and if you would like to see that, then just keep watching. Okay, so it happened last March. That's crazy. It was like almost 2 years ago, but it happened last March. We went on a snowboarding holiday. We go every single year snowboarding in the French Alps, and it was just a normal holiday. And by this point, I'd been snowboarding a few times. So this is the year 2018 when we went out. Now it's 2019, but when we went snowboarding it was 2018. We'd been boarding since 2015, so we were quite good. I'm not like an amazing snowboarder or anything, but I am good. I'm confident and I can do it. So we are there for like a week. We go on the Saturday and we come home the Friday. So Sunday is our first day snowboarding. We do that, great, and we just had like a massive bucket load of fresh snow. So on the Sunday it was less about snowboarding and like going fast and everything, and it was more about having fun. And I don't mean like building snowmen, we're still snowboarding, but we're going off piste and we're getting in the powder and we're practicing jumping, because when you land you're just landing in soft powder. So it's more of like a play around day and we don't pack in the miles. Monday comes and this is a day where we want to pack in the miles. We want to do a lot of snowboarding, we want to go fast, yeah, we want to get videos, we want to do it all. And it gets to like, I can't even remember the time, but it was in the morning, like 10 o'clock-ish. And we have done like a couple of runs and we're about to go up and like stop for a bit of a coffee break, and I was so thirsty, and I distinctively remember being so thirsty. My mum is not actually with us at this point. It's me, my dad, my sister's boyfriend and his sister. So there is a group of us, but my mum and my sister's boyfriend's rest of the family aren't quite with us yet. We were going to meet, you know, soon. So we're on a chairlift going up, and I said to my dad, I was like, oh, I'm so thirsty, I need some water. And also it's important to note that this day was actually really hot, which sounds weird because it's covered in snow, but when the sun comes out you can get really hot, and it can get to like 10 degrees or something, which is freezing cold, I know, but it's really hot when you're in so many layers when you're snowboarding. So I was wearing 2 layers of thermals, and before this I'd taken 1 layer of thermal off and tied it around my waist, so it was like flopping down by my bum. And so on the chairlift I kind of just sat down, and it was actually, I don't know how to describe it, but the material of the thermal was on the seat, which was attached to me. Chairlift gets to the top, we lift the bar off, we go to get off, and I can't push myself off the seat, and I realised my dad's hand is actually on my thermal that is tied around my waist, which is why I can't get off. And I'm like, Dad, your hand's on my thermal. So he takes it off and I get off, but by this point it's sort of already trying to turn, so I had to kind of jump off, and I just lost control of my board a little bit, which happens a lot, and so you just fall and you try and get up, and you know, scoot off as soon as you can. I get off the chairlift, I'm going kind of down the hill, and I see after every chairlift there's like a big orange fence that says do not stop here, and it's so that people, obviously when they get off the chairlift, they don't just stop there, because that means that people are just going to keep crashing into them, because that's their line of, you know, that's their path line when they go off the chairlift. So I'm like, oh my god, I'm going straight into this fence. So I try and avoid it, but not very well. I know I'm gonna fall, so I just think, oh, it doesn't matter, I'll just have to fall. I put my arm down to break the fall, and I felt and heard pop. I knew at that point I had done something, because I literally felt this lower part of my arm move up here. Then I'm just on the floor in a lot of pain at this point. My dad's like, can you get up? And I'm like, Dad, I've broken my arm. I've broken my arm. He's like, no, you haven't. I'm like, Dad, I've broken my arm. So he comes over and I'm like, I'm gonna pass out, I'm gonna pass out. He didn't say this at the time, but afterwards he told me he could see that my arm was out of place through my coat. So my bone wasn't sticking out or anything like that. What I mean is that I had this huge coat on and he could see my elbow was not in the right place. So my dad goes to get a paramedic, and luckily where the chairlift was, the chairlift we were on had a medical stop right there. So it had a first aid kit and things. Not that a first aid kit would have helped me at all. The medical guy comes out and he's like, oh, what have you done? I'm like, I've broken my arm. And he's like, can you move it at all? I'm like, no, my arm is broken and I'm in so much pain. I know it's broken. Now I do complain about like things being in pain, but I know when I've really done something, and I have a very high pain threshold. Well, I think I have a very high pain threshold anyway. And because of the way I was, so I was kind of, I don't know how well the camera's gonna pick this up, but say like here's the ground. I was being like that because at that point that was the most comfortable position, and he's going, it's your wrist, and I'm going, no, it's my elbow. And he's like, no, your wrist is bent. Like, and they're French, so the language barrier is like a little bit, it's not great. And I'm like, no, it's my elbow, please help me. And then my mum appears and she's like, you okay, you okay? She knew that I was hurt, but she still questioned it. She was like, you better have done something here, because we're not having these paramedics out for nothing. The paramedic is then trying to feel for a pulse, because what he was worried about was that if a bone was broken, it was cutting off the blood circulation, and therefore like they wouldn't feel a pulse, and he wasn't getting anything. They call the helicopter. My mum was like, oh, for God's sake, like she better have done something now. They couldn't get a pulse in my wrist, so they immediately call a doctor to come up on the helicopter so that he could just put it into place there and then. After about 30 seconds or so, they found one. So they stopped the call for the doctor to come up, but they kept the helicopter coming because this was the only way off of the mountain for me. I'm just going to pause this story here. So this is still part of the story, but it's important to say, if you go skiing or snowboarding, you get the opportunity to take out extra insurance while you're out there. It's €3 a day. So if you're there for like 3 days, it's €9. If you're there for a week, it's €15. Please take it out, because what this insurance does, on top of your holiday insurance, so we obviously had holiday insurance, but we also get out this extra insurance, and what it does is it guarantees you off of the mountain for free. Well, not for free, but for $3 a day. So it absolutely guarantees you to get off this mountain. So they say to my dad, have you got the insurance? And he says yes. Either way, they were still going to have to helicopter, but thank goodness we got the insurance out. They send the helicopter up, and people are all around me like this, with their phones and videoing me, because you know there's a helicopter coming. And normally when you see a helicopter snowboarding or skiing, you immediately go to, there is a really bad injury, it's a back or it's a neck or something like that. You don't go to somebody's dislocated their elbow. Actually, now that you think about it, if that is your only option off of the mountain, that's what they're gonna have to call. So the helicopter lands and they have to strap me onto a board. And I'm like, I can walk. And they're like, no, we need to strap you on, because if you walk and you fall and you put your, it's just gonna be a disaster. So they strap me onto this board and my elbow's like here and I'm all strapped down, and they load me onto the helicopter. It was a pretty cool experience being in a helicopter, but at the same time, I didn't really have time to think about that because, like I had a broken arm. I could just see so many people with their phones videoing me, and I so wanted to just be like out of the window, but I kind of had other things on my mind. But I will say this, now I have done a video about this, about my stomach and how badly I suffer with IBS. When I was in that helicopter, I was thinking to myself, I have pain, IBS pain, worse than the pain of my elbow. And then I just thought, that must be excruciating pain to have in my stomach if a dislocated elbow is less painful than that. Anyway, that's kind of going off topic. Going back onto it. So I'm in the helicopter. It's not a very long journey, but the views are incredible. You never get them anywhere else except for in a helicopter. I landed, and then they have to load me into an ambulance to get me to like the med centre. It's not really a hospital, but it's a medical centre. So then I'm filling out forms, and I thought I would try and help them out because they were French, and they asked me for my mobile number. And I was like, okay, I'll say it in French. And I'm like, 0, says, I had to keep counting up when it's my mobile number. And they were obviously getting frustrated. They're like, just say it in fucking English. But, you know, I wanted to be helpful and say it in French for them. So anyway, that's like a side point story, not important. So I get into the ambulance and I get to the med centre. That's where they're like, okay, we've got a problem here, we'll get you straight in for x-ray. Like I said before, I'm wearing like a thick coat, but it is a brand new coat. I just bought it like a week before we went on holiday, and there was no way that they were going to cut this £200 coat off of me. And I was like, I don't care how much it hurts, I'm getting it off. So obviously this side was really easy to get off, and then I just had to kind of maneuver it around my elbow, which was really painful. So I only had one thermal on, which was fine. I'd kept the loose one on, so it was fine to get off. I remembered that I wasn't wearing a bra. I was wearing a vest, but I had no bra on. So I have to put my arm on this thing to get x-rayed, and the way they want it is they want it like this. Bear in mind, this bit is not there anymore, it's like over here, but this is how they want the x-ray to be. So I'm like trying to hold my boobs with one arm and trying to x-ray my other arm. So I want to cry at how painful and embarrassing this is. They x-ray it, they're like, yep, definitely dislocated, we need to put it back. So I lie down on the bed and I'm like preparing for them to do something horrible and painful to me. And he literally, quite quickly, just goes like, and then he very slowly puts it down, and I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, just breathe through the pain. Like, yeah, mate, that's easy for you to say. You're literally taking an elbow which has come over here and trying to move it back down there. And then he slowly twists it this way, and then he twists it that way. And I didn't feel it go back into place. All I could feel was how painful it was. He said, okay, it's back in place now. And I'm like, really? Because it doesn't feel any different. And he's like, yep, no, it's back in place. I'm just going to try and redislocate it. And I'm like, oh, hell no! Basically, they have to do this so that if they can easily get it back out, then they haven't put it in right in the first place. I was just like, just do it quickly then. And he couldn't redislocate it, which meant that he'd put it back in the right place. But I'm still not feeling any better. It's still really painful. And I think if you've got a dislocation and they put it back in, it's like instant relief. Like, oh my God, that. But it wasn't that at all. It was still so painful. So then the nurse comes in. She's like, would you like some morphine? I'm like, mm-hmm. Like, that would have been good 20 minutes ago, but now it's fine. So then they have to plaster it up. So I go into another room and I'm like in a sling, and I'm like, it's still so painful. But they have to then plaster it up. So, you know, they're doing it all. And then they have to make a cut in the plaster. And I wish I took pictures of it, but I didn't. I've got the x-rays and I've got other stuff to show you. But they have to, this was a plaster cast going from here to here. So I had no movement except my shoulder. And they made a cut all the way up to here because when I went on the plane, you know, you obviously swell on a plane, so they need to allow extra room in the cast for swelling. They did that, and then they need to re-x-ray it. And by this point, the tablets had started to work, so I was not in as much pain anymore. They re-x-rayed it, it was all fine and in the same place. And I will now insert a picture of the x-ray of the dislocated elbow, and then the x-ray of after they put it back into place. So yeah, I hope you like those two x-rays. I think that the original one looks like a foot, but you can clearly see the balls come out of the socket and it should not be where it is. That's pretty much the end of my story. I actually ended up flying home the next day because there was no point me staying out there for the rest of the week. I will add in some more photos though, because when I got the cast off a week later, all of this was black. bruised, like disgusting. It looked like mold. Like not on my skin, but the bruise looked like the colour of mold. So I'll put in those photos for you now. So yeah, that really does bring me to the end of my story. It's now been well over a year. I had to do physiotherapy for a couple of months. I couldn't drive for like 5 weeks because you can't drive until you have this movement back in your arm. And once you've had an injury like that, getting it past like here is so painful. So for months, I couldn't get it straight. This was like as much as I could go. Now I can get it straight, but I actually found out that I have something like hyperextension. Basically, it can go past being completely flat, and actually when they measured it, it was slightly like that. And I'll never get that back in my right arm. I'll only get it to flat, which is fine because I don't really need that. I never knew I had it anyway. But yeah, so it's completely healed now. I can do like handstands and stuff on it. The thing I have found that is still difficult is, say for example, when I'm cleaning shower glass, doing this movement, like cleaning something, after a couple of seconds, I can't do it anymore because it really hurts and it's almost like it's too weak to do that movement a lot. Another thing which I've noticed, when I'm straightening my hair, I'm in this position for a while and then I'll go to straighten it and it will almost like lock. So although I can straighten it, it gets to a point where it kind of locks and I have to force it to straighten, which I don't mean to do, if that makes sense, but it will go like, and it will really hurt because it's locked itself and I've pushed it out of that lock. So that's really the only things that I've noticed with it that aren't quite right, but I think it's always going to be like that, and I'm always kind of going to have the thing in the back of my head, like, what if it happens again? So now when I go snowboarding, I do wear like a support on it. Anyway, I'm really going to shut up now because I think this video is going to be really long. I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Click that subscribe button down below. Go and watch Poltergeist on Amazon Prime if you haven't already seen it. I mentioned it in my last video. Link is going to be in the description below. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!